Victory!
Greetings, I am Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko. I am not looking forward to today's pod, dudes and dudettes, because you want to know what we're in for? Well, I guess to cover things first of all, we are in Slappy Valley, this second of 3 Gex Cave hub worlds for the media dimension. I will say this is host to some pretty interesting levels, and by that I mean 1, really. We'll be getting to that in the next part. Excuse me. I apologize for that, but, well, these next 2 set of levels don't really deserve any sort of respect, so, fuck them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, let me tell you. We're going to be tackling the Mythology Network, and, Fairytales TV, which I'm kind of sort of indifferent on. Whatever. I talked about this level to death in the review. I'll reiterate my points just for the sake of getting things across about how I feel, and exactly what I think could have possibly been done better. But yeah, enjoy this really cut down and edited to hell section. And in a bit of a scummy move on my part, I'm not actually going to be showing all 3 missions. Basically, all you're going to be seeing is a heavily cut together version of this. You get to the TV at the end of the rainbow. You might be disappointed, but again, if you really want to see the rest of this level, then play Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko and find out for yourself. I'm not fucking doing it. Well, I mean, I already did it for the review, but I mean, fuck it, I'm not doing it again. In any case, let's get into brass tacks as the main gimmick of this level. Oh, and apparently Alfred went to Greece. Must have been nice for him. I wasn't aware butlers really travelled all that often. Anyway, Gex, excuse me. Basically, he gets the Hercules power-up. He can move stone blocks. Isn't that wonderful? Here's the problem. It's on a very limited time limit. Might not seem like a big problem there, since the Hercules power station is just right there. Here's the thing. This level will require you to go back and forth, yippee-yo, kaye, towards the Hercules power station. You get powered up, you knock down some blocks, go back again, and do it again. This also requires you to use the rarely if ever seen Ice Fly power-up, making its return from Gex 1. Much like in the first game, you can freeze enemies, use them as platforms, or you can just tail whip them and shatter them. Again, it's fine enough, even if its usage is a little bit tedious since you're kind of required to use it to get to specific places. So it does kind of lose the whole... It does kind of lose the little bit of well, I wouldn't say uniquity, but at least the interesting little factor you had in Gex 3D Enter the Gecko, where what you would be doing with that is that you'd circle around them and they'd freeze into a block and you'd watch them shatter into a million pieces. Whatever. I suppose, to talk about enemies in this stage, they're honestly one of the few redeeming factors. I mean, with this specifically, you have little, like, what do you call them, like, soldiers? I don't know, they have really interesting looking helmets. I'd hesitate to call them Roman soldiers, but they have kind of that sort of similar Spartan sort of design. Yeah, whatever. Again, you can just knock them away. I think you have to, like, tail bounce them a couple of times before you can actually destroy them. But I mean, yeah, some of the enemies can get quite annoying. Interesting enough design-wise, though, but yeah. See? And the hitboxes are a little bit off, even though that one was more so on my part than anything else. You do also have birds, which will swoop down and, you know, try to have a nice meal out of Gex. And of course, you'll be subject to this for most of the stage. Enjoy precision platforming, everybody. Cut down for your convenience, because you will fall off a lot in this stage. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm usually the best at platformers, like, the best of times when it comes to precision jumping, but Jesus, this level will make you pay for your mistakes. Like, I mean, you can walk on the clouds, well, kind of, depending on if it's, like, solid enough. But for the most part, you will be constantly getting the Hercules power up, pushing things into place, and, well, basically just doing precision platforming. I mentioned as much in the review that, again, it is very much just a Spartan example of platforming, and that's really what all this is. I mean, these secondary objectives that you have to do in terms of, you know, getting 5 golden apples, you know, also smashing the statues, not too bad. I just wish the level design was a little bit more solid, for the lack of a better word. Let me think about how I can put this into words. Okay, I guess if I could... You know what, I just don't have anything for this level, I'm sorry. I suppose if I could put it into a little bit more context, like it's... Like, all you're seeing right now is clouds, platforms floating in the sky, very little definition to anything, whereas compared to Tut TV or, like, you know, even some of the secret missions, like the In Dragnet-inspired mission, like, you know, there was a solid location to explore around it, whereas here it's just floating platforms in the sky. To use an example that I think a lot more people on this channel will get, think Sonic Lost World on a more extreme degree. That's basically what this level is, and these... To me, these are kind of textbook examples of what I don't like in a 3D platformer especially. Like, I mean, everything just feels so very distant, and you don't really get a feel for, you know, the level that you're meant to be parodying. Here it just feels like generic floating platforms in the sky level, whereas, you know, what Gex levels in particular should be striving for is making you feel like you're, you know, traveling through a Greek mythology sort of film. And I mean, considering the considering the influences on display here with, you know, Jason and the Argonauts and Odysseus and a bunch of others, you know, I'm pretty sure you had plenty of Greek myths and, you know, stories and legends that you could have potentially had some decent parodies out of, but I don't know, this just doesn't really do it, and I kind of get the impression that this might have been like a very early in development level, because, like, I mean, again, I think I might have brought this up before, or if not, I'll probably just reiterate it, like, how some video games will develop, like, a lot of their first levels, like, around the middle, or, like, at a later point in the game where, you know, the developers are a lot more experienced. Sorry, a lot less experienced, so, in that sense, a lot of what they're developing isn't exactly stellar. It's kind of what I see here, like, I mean, they have the basics down, like, in terms of what sort of mission structure you're going for, and in terms of, well, I mean, at least playtesting everything to be relatively okay. It just feels very... You know what? I don't even have anything to say about this level. Fuck it. It sucks. We're nearly there at the end of it, and that'll be the last we'll ever hear of the Mythology Network. I am now officially wiping my hands of this shit forever. Bye-bye.
My big, strong Gexy has done it again. Love those bulging biceps.
These biceps are just the beginning, my fair maiden. Speaking of bulging, did I just say that out loud?
Yep, I'm afraid you did.
I'm a bad boy.
Yeah, sure you are, Gex. Anyway, onwards to new adventure. Now we have Fairytales TV. The comparatively more better level, but still one that I don't think is really all that, interesting. Again, green grassland fields and... Well, there's really not much to this level, although there is an interesting point that I will bring up a little bit later on. But the one thing I will say is that unlike the Mythology Network, I think that parodies are a little bit more, you know, direct this time around. Again, you saw the Three Little Pigs homage right over there, so, you know, level parodies are go. And I suppose if there's really anything else to talk about in terms of this level, well, let me tell you, there was actually a very interesting bit of cut content from Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko, which I will read to you now. And mainly in the fact that, while this level is generally based on Jack and the Beanstalk in terms of its general aesthetic, there was actually a much different looking version of Fairy Tale Theater, which was seen in the Gex 3 beta, where the village, well, what you would have been seeing is a more village looking Fairy Tale TV. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they still had some of the same missions, like, you know, the Three Little Pigs, but it would have tackled a lot more fairy tales than just, you know, Jack and the Beanstalk. I do believe the video is up on YouTube if you want to go off and find it, but it is actually very interesting because, much like with another level that I think I might have talked about in a previous take, which I might bring up if I ever run out of commentary, yeah, there was quite a lot of the town actually developed in terms of not just its missions, but also in terms of how much of the area was actually playable. I don't know, man, it's just fascinating to see, like, how many, especially in the PS1 days, like, where you could really sort of develop how many, like, really sort of develop a more concise version of, well, a level, basically. Again, I'm not really making a lot of sense. That mirror will tackle the different point. Anyway, the point being is that, I don't know, it's just fascinating to see how a lot of, like, concepts get a lot of development time to the point where they actually get in the game itself before being cut. It's something you don't really see that much anymore. I guess that's more so down to, like, legal reasons for, you know, video games, and the fact that a lot of this stuff is probably a lot easier to be discovered by data miners in today's day and age than it would be for a modern game with, you know, security protocols and all that sort of crap. I don't know. I think I did also mention that before with, like, the original variant of Western Station having a more developed level. I don't know, it was really interesting to see, and to be perfectly honest, I would have rather have seen the original variant of Fairytales TV, because that would have been cool, dude. Especially with more so having, like, I guess maybe more of, like, a town sort of aesthetic. I guess perhaps they might have seen it being a little bit too similar to the original version of Western Station, although since that ended up getting cut, I suppose Catch-22, I guess, or fuck it. I don't know. It's just fascinating to see that these levels were cut and, well, again, potential to bring it back in a Gex 4, possibly. Well, I mean, I suppose not, since I kind of already tackled the general concept here, but even still, like, I mean, you could, that's not to say you could tackle the same ones, you could probably tackle, like, different sort of mythology or fairy tales or whatever. I don't know, there's a lot of potential in levels like this, and I don't think, the Fairytales TV thing here really did it as much justice, because it's, I don't know, maybe it's just my general aversion to generic grassland and fields levels and platformers. I wouldn't really say it's even really an aversion, it's just more so that I think some games kind of treat it as like a platformer standard. It's like, oh look, it's grassland and snowland without really having anything unique to set it apart. Some games do a better job of it than others, and I think it's really more so about artistic cohesion. Like, I mean, if I am to pick a grassland stage, I'd rather something that's a little bit more, I guess a little bit more vibrant but realistic, but at the same time also having something pretty cool being done with the lighting. I don't know. It's something that kind of puts a little bit of, you know, pizzazz into making it look nice. Well, again, that's not very descriptive, but fuck it. It's just that this level is so green, it's making me nervous, as Gex says, which isn't entirely uncommon, because I'm pretty sure Gex has also seen you know, the generic cartoon level from bloody Gex Enter the Gecko, so I mean, you know, it's like, it's seeing the world like Keith Richards does. The only thing I will say is that in terms of anything else in this level, you really don't want to fall off the beanstalk, because, I mean, if you do, well, thank goodness for the mirror system, otherwise you will be in for a lengthy climb. But I'll get into that next time. And by next time, I mean the next mission. I really should make those a little bit more distinct, but anyway. Apparently, and again, something I never really thought about, but Gex apparently has the power to tail whip bloody, buildings? I don't know, I guess it brings new meaning to the term it's tail time if you can destroy buildings with a single hit. The wonders of drugs. Yeah, just look at that destruction, dude. He is, goddamn, the property damage, man. Well, then again, it might be a leftover ability from when he was, like, Gexzilla, maybe? Who knows, whatever. This doesn't require too much thought. Anyway, Red Riding Gex must now ascend, descend, glide to the TV. Again, same sort of gliding controls you have with the Count Dracula outfit, so nothing really to worry about. Oh, and there's also like 3 versions of the Big Bad Wolf, which obviously means that rolls, you're gonna burn! No idea why they said that. But I mean, the other 2 missions I don't think are really that interesting. The other one is Ascend the Beanstalk, and the other one is Jump Over Candles. I don't really know what that one's referring to, but it's probably a fairy tale that I'm missing out on. I don't know. I mean, the Jack and the Beanstalk thing in general is not necessarily the most interesting. I mean, you would have thought that they would have had like a mini-boss there or something. And here's what the mirrors do. They teleport you with the same sort of effects you had with the magnifying glass. Oh, anyway, onwards to new adventure. Yellow leaves dip down, the purple leaves bounce you up for some reason. I don't know, blame genetically modified crops, I guess. And before too long, you shall reach the top of the beanstalk, where you have Fee5 Photo, whatever. Fido, whatever his name is. There isn't really much to say about this level, it's just rather bare bones, really. Again, I mentioned before that I would have much rather the original variant with the town, but I suppose maybe, like, time constraints, like, to get the game out before the holiday season might have been a thing. Because, I mean, again, I can only really speak in terms of, like, rumors here, but I guess perhaps it could be the whole sort of time crunch kind of thing that might have led to Crystal Dynamics kind of having a bit of fatigue with the Gex series. I mean, like, diving back into Gex 2's development history, and then again, I do kind of owe Callum Sparrow a debt for this, for bringing this up in one of the commentary parts that I did way back for Gex 2, but yeah, considering the fact that Crystal Dynamics was influenced to finish the game because of a crying boy who was in a very rural area to want the game, you know, I guess maybe depending on... I'm not necessarily sure how popular the Gex series was in the 90s, considering that this was also the era with the... well, where there was tons of video games to pick and choose your choice, and not to mention, you know, the dominating popularity of games like, you know, Crash Bandicoot or Sonic or whatever. I'm not too sure how popular the Gex series was, but I mean, I guess if during the age of, like, the mascot platformer craze, where everybody was just sort of rushed to, you know, create the next big hit, there was probably a lot of pressure on the Gex series to make, you know, IDOS, like, a lot of money. So maybe that could have contributed to Crystal Dynamics kind of dropping the series after this point. I don't know. It is fascinating, and I guess I would like to see a little bit more insight from either former developers or people working at Crystal Dynamics now. Although, then again, I suppose I could also just sort of think about that and, you know, the same people working at Crystal Dynamics today probably aren't the same sort of people that were working there back in, like, 1999 or whatever. Well, I mean, then again, like, I suppose I probably wouldn't even know who the hell Gex is, considering that in recent years all they're really known for is Tomb Raider, that one Avengers game that's coming out this year, and Tomb Raider. I don't know. Cynicism aside, maybe there's a... Well, there isn't always a chance for a Gex, like, revival, and, you know, the chance for the games to get a sequel. Like, I guess you could probably handle one kind of like an Expendables kind of way. You know, like... whatever. These levels drive me to be very cynical, but again, this mission is actually the most simple out of them all. They're related in close proximity. Jump over the candles and bada bing, you do your thing and that's the end of it. Again, unlike the Mythology Network, I wouldn't say this level is terrible, it's just... well, don't fall down, otherwise you're in for a lot of backtracking, really. And besides that, just kind of a stock standard level. Nothing too bad, but I mean, I can think of plenty of other sort of level tropes that I think could have deserved being expanded into a full level much rather than this one. Or at the very least, we could have had the original version of this level, but then again, I already dived into that in a complete rambling mess as I was before. Yeah, I'm with you, Gex. It's so green and pleasant that it makes me nervous. Ah, yes, tea and crumpets all round, my boy! Alfred, what would we do without you? A faithful butler for a faithful companion. Anyway, on that note, I am Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on the Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko commentary, we'll actually be getting to the good shit next time, so, catch you later, dudes and dudettes, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, don't you look cute?
There was nothing in my dossier about the little girl outfit. This is getting ridiculous. Do you think red makes me look fat?